You're standing in a stranger's kitchen, running your finger along a granite countertop you can't quite believe is real. The listing agent is talking about school districts. Your phone is doing math you didn't ask it to do, mortgage payment, closing costs, how much of your savings account is about to disappear into a down payment. And somewhere in the back of your head, a voice you've heard your whole life is whispering the same line it always whispers. Renting is throwing your money away. Here's the problem with that voice. It's repeating advice from a housing market that doesn't exist anymore. And the one number that would actually tell you whether buying that house is smart, most people who buy a house never calculated. Not once. Not before they sign anything.
Hey, welcome to Opulentia, the channel that turns the confusing parts of money into the parts you actually understand. If that's your kind of channel, the subscribe button is right there, and it costs you nothing, but might save you 6 figures by the time this video is over. So let's ask the real question. Not, is renting a waste of money? A better one. What is actually happening financially when you rent versus when you buy? And which one wins for you in this market right now? Because the old rule didn't come from nowhere. It came from a very specific set of decades, and it's worth understanding exactly how it got built, because that's the only way to see why it's cracking. For most of the 1990s and 2000s, a mortgage rate between 6 and 8% was considered completely normal, and home prices climbed almost every single year, in almost every city, regardless of what you bought. Then came 2008, a brutal reminder that home prices can fall, sometimes by a lot, sometimes for years. And then came the 2010s and early 2020s, a stretch where rates dropped to historic lows, at one point under 3%, while prices kept climbing anyway. That combination, dirt cheap borrowing plus rising prices, is the exact environment that cemented buying always wins as common sense. An entire generation of parents gave that advice to their kids because for them, in that specific window, it was true. That window closed. Rates didn't stay near 3%, they more than doubled. And the price growth that used to bail out even a badly timed purchase has slowed to a crawl. As of this summer, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate is sitting around 6.5%. And here's the part almost nobody mentions. Forecasters are projecting home prices to grow by roughly 1% this year, while inflation is expected to run closer to 3.5%. Read that again. If a house's price tag grows slower than the cost of everything else, that house is quietly losing value in real terms, even while the number on the listing goes up. The sticker price can rise and you can still be getting poor because $1 of home equity next year buys less than $1 buys today. That's the shift nobody updated the advice for. So here's the number that actually matters, the one that gets skipped. It's called the price-to-rent ratio, and it's almost embarrassingly simple. Take the price of a home, divide it by what a year of rent would cost for something comparable. That's the whole ratio. Right now, the median home in the US sells for a little over $436,000. The median rent for a comparable 2-bedroom is about $1,550 a month, $18,600 a year. Divide one by the other, and you land around 23 or 24. Here's what that number means. Under 15, buying is clearly the stronger move. You're paying a small multiple of a year's rent for the entire asset. Between 15 and 20, it's genuinely close, a toss-up depending on your specifics. Above 20, and especially up near 23 like the national number right now, the math is quietly leaning toward renting. And this isn't evenly spread. Somewhere like Pittsburgh or Cleveland can still sit well under 15, where buying is the clear winner. Somewhere like San Francisco can sit up near 40, where renting a comparable place costs a fraction of what owning would. The national number is a starting point, not your answer. You have to run it for your own city, which we'll get to. Let's put real dollars on the national case, because ratio of 23 doesn't feel like anything until you translate it. Buy that median home with a standard 20% down payment, and you're financing roughly $350,000 at today's rate. Principal and interest alone comes out to around $2,200 a month.
Add property tax, add insurance, and you're closer to $2,700 a month just to keep the lights on in a house you own. Compare that to $1,550 in rent for a comparable place. That's an $1,100 a month gap, and it doesn't even include the costs that only show up after you've signed. The roughly 1% of a home's value that ends up going to maintenance and repairs most years, private mortgage insurance if your down payment is under 20%, or the 6 to 8% of the sale price that disappears into agent commissions the day you eventually sell.
You might be thinking, but that mortgage payment is building equity. Rent is just gone. And you're partly right. Here's what that misses. Interest is also just gone. In the early years of a 30-year mortgage, the overwhelming majority of every payment is interest, not equity. You're renting the bank's money and paying handsomely for it long before you're meaningfully paying down the house itself. Owning isn't automatically wealth building. It's a leveraged bet on one specific asset in one specific market at one specific interest rate. Sometimes that bet pays off enormously. Sometimes it doesn't. The mortgage payment doesn't know which outcome you're going to get. Only time does.
So let's watch that bet actually play out for two people. Devin and Maya both make $75,000 a year. Same job title, different cities of choice, same starting savings, a little over $100,000 each, built up over years of careful budgeting. Devin buys, puts down roughly $87,000, covers another $13,000 in closing costs, and moves into that $436,000 house. The monthly payment, principal, interest, tax, insurance, lands around $2,700 before maintenance. Maya rents, same quality of home, $1,550 a month. She takes the $100,000 down payment she didn't spend and invests it. She also takes the $1,100 monthly gap between what Devin pays and what she pays and invests that too, every single month, without fail.
Year 1. Devin feels like the winner. There's a sense of arrival that comes with owning a front door. Maya's portfolio statement doesn't feel like anything yet. It's just a number on a screen. Year 5, the picture starts to shift. Devin's home has crawled up in value, roughly matching that sluggish national pace, while a water heater and a roof repair have quietly eaten a chunk of the equity narrative. Maya's invested money, down payment plus 5 years of that $1,100 monthly gap, has had 5 years of market growth working on it, uninterrupted by repair bills. Year 10. Devin owns a paid-down, appreciating but slowly asset, and a fixed housing cost that inflation is now making relatively cheaper to carry. A real, meaningful win. But Maya's invested balance, grown from that same starting pool of money, has compounded into a portfolio noticeably larger than the equity Devin has built. Not because Maya is smarter, because in this particular market, at this particular interest rate, the math on buy versus invest the difference tilted her direction. Neither of them made a mistake. They made different bets in a market where the old assumption that buying automatically wins quietly stopped being universally true. That's the psychological reframe worth sitting with. Renting was never throwing money away. Renting is buying flexibility, the ability to move for a job, to not be on the hook for a new roof, to not be underwater if prices dip in your specific zip code. Buying was never automatic wealth. It's a leveraged, geographically concentrated bet that happens to come with a place to live attached to it. Neither one is morally superior. They're just different trades, and the market decides, city by city, which trade is currently cheaper. So here's what you actually do with this. Before you buy, before you fall in love with the granite countertop, calculate your own price-to-rent ratio for the specific home and the specific city you're looking at. Home price divided by a year of comparable rent. Say you're eyeing a $300,000 home, and a comparable rental nearby runs $1,500 a month, $18,000 a year. $300,000 divided by $18,000 is about 17. That's the close call zone, worth digging into how long you plan to stay, since buying usually needs 4 to 6 years just to break even once you account for closing costs and what that down payment would have earned invested elsewhere.
If your ratio comes out under 15, the math is genuinely on your side to buy. If it's up near 20 or above, like most of the country is right now, know that you're not choosing the smart option over the wasteful one. You're choosing stability and a fixed payment over flexibility and liquidity, and paying a real calculable price for that stability, whether or not anyone around you admits it out loud. Next time you're standing in that kitchen, finger on the countertop, phone doing math you didn't ask for, you don't have to listen to the voice that's been repeating a decades-old rule like scripture. Run the number first. Feel the room second. The house isn't a moral decision. It's a math problem wearing a very nice kitchen.